I'm using Ripple for this because it provides free hosting for your websites, and it basically makes it a lot easier to code. It's an online ID, so it doesn't store any files on your computer. Everything is stored online and for free. So let's get started. So first of all, we're going to discuss what you have in every single HTML document and some of the very basics of HTML in this episode. So every HTML will start with something that looks a bit like this. So what you have is every single HTML will start with a greater than exclamation mark D0CTYP doc type capitals and then space HTML, and then you can see that it's enclosed with greater than and smaller than marks. And what they basically do is enclose the elements. All elements in HTML are enclosed by these greater than and smaller than symbols. So as you can see here, this element is enclosed, this element is enclosed with them, this element is enclosed with them. Yeah. Then what we have is this greater than HTML, and you can probably tell what that does. It basically sets that this area is a HTML document. Then what we have at the bottom, the same indentation, is greater than slash HTML. Now what that slash does is it basically says, this one is saying, okay, we're going to start an element. This one's saying, okay, we're going to end the element because it has a slash. This one doesn't have an end because it's saying that this is a HTML document basically, and you can't end that. So you can see that we have these two declaring that this area is a HTML area document. So then we have the head. Now this is basically I would describe it as the settings of your HTML document. It's not really going to affect what your text looks like, maybe a little bit, but not very much. So you start off, this Ripple starts off with greater than meta charset equals UTF-8, and meta name equals viewport, content equals width equals device width. I'm pretty sure it sets that to default, but just in case, you should probably consider writing that. Then what we have is the title. Now this is the first thing in a HTML document that can be tweaked. So what you can see here is I've currently got it set to HTML guide. So if we run that, on this screen it's not really showing anything, but if we open this website in a different tab, you can see right here that it says HTML guide. So that is a title of our document, and we can add images to that and lots of things. I won't be going over that today. All you need to know is that this is the title of your document. So I could change that to maybe HurtiCode, and it will still, if I reload this page, then you can see that it changes to HurtiCode. This website's title is Ripple.it, YouTube website. So all of these, okay, these are websites. This is called the title. Then what we have is greater than link href, which is basically a way to reference something. Style.css, relation equals style sheet type equals text/css. Now this we won't be covering today. We won't be covering CSS. We'll probably be covering it in the next few episodes. But what you need to know about this is it's pretty important. And what that does is it says, okay, in this style.css document, that's where all of my CSS code is enclosed. And what CSS code does is it basically it makes your text look good. As you'll see when we actually get on to making a few of our own pieces of text in this website, you'll see that it doesn't really look very good at the start. So what we need is CSS to make it change. We can change the color, we can change the background, we can change so many things with that CSS. Then what we have is we're saying /head. So as we did /HTML, we're doing /head to mark that this is the end of our head element. This is all of our settings and stuff changed and tweaked, And now what we're doing is greater than body. Now what the body is basically what's going to be inside your this is what's going to be inside your HTML document. So that's what's going to be shown or presented or anything on your HTML document, or should be inside a greater than body. And you can see we've already got something here which says greater than script source equals script.js. You'll see the script.js file, and that JavaScript or .js files, what they do is they're basically code. It's basically the Python, the HTML version of Python or Java or whatever language you have learned or know of. Basically the way of coding your websites. So if you want, let's say, a button to maybe do some kind of function and do this or that and then take you to a different website, you're probably going to be using script.js or whatever JS file you have. It doesn't necessarily have to be changed to script.js. You can change this to maybe, as with the CSS file, you can change this to hello.js, and as long as you rename your JS file to hello.js, it will still work. Then you have the /script, which is marking, okay, this is the end of our script element. And we'll be talking more about CSS and JS, as I said, in the next few episodes. But now let's get on to actually making something for our website. So let's start off by writing greater than p, and then we're going to enclose it with a small bracket. The small greater than sign. So then what I'm going to do is just write hello world. Then if we include it with a /p, because all elements must be enclosed with these, except for a few. As we can see, this one isn't, the meta isn't, a few things aren't, but most elements, especially ones that contain text or buttons or something like that, aren't just settings or changing something. They are probably going to have a /p. So now if you run this, then you can see that you've got hello world. If you reload our web page over here, then you can see that it also says hello world. And that's basically, and the P stands for paragraph. This is just going to display some text on our web page. Then the next one that we're going to be covering is headings, or H1 or H2 or H3 or H4. You carry on infinitely basically with that. Then if you write hello world in this and compare it to the paragraph, then you can see that first of all, it's absolutely massive compared to that tiny paragraph, and also it's in bold. And we'll be covering how to make things bold in this episode. So you can see that it's quite big compared to that, and it's in bold. So that's basically what headings are. So now we're going to be covering breaks, or greater than BR, or smaller than BR, and greater than. So what breaks are, is they're basically a way to make something go on a new line. So if you might be familiar with the /n in Python, and what that does is it makes it go into a new line. Now what this does is it's quite similar, but it's also not that similar. What this does is it basically creates a break. So one line in your HTML will just be skipped. So now if I do another H1 test, then what you'll see is that there's a line in between these. If we just highlight it, then it will become clear that actually there's this line which has been skipped. And then because of this break, so you've got hello world, you've skipped a line, then you've got test. Okay, that's basically so that's what the greater than, smaller than, BR greater than does. Then what we're going to be doing is using the B element. Now what this does is means basically sets a group of text into bold. As you can see this right now, these P elements are not in bold. Just make a new P paragraph called test. Then you can see that it is not in bold. It's just tiny and just normal basically. Then if we just go down, and you can see that it automatically indents your stuff. It might not do that for you, but it probably will. So that's how you use all of these different elements. So you can see we've got the P element, the heading element, the break element, and the bold element. And considering that it's only about 10 minutes, how about we move on to style? Our style has about 3 ways that you can make style. The first way, and probably the most common way, is in the style.css or whatever document you have that ends in CSS. And you can see that this is what we linked over here. And so that's where our CSS will be located. That stands for Cascading Style Sheets, CSS. And so that's the most common way. And in bigger websites, you'll probably be seeing that they do that. The second way is by using a greater than style element. So outside of our body, if we just type greater than style, you can see it comes up. Then we can write all of our stuff that we'd probably usually be putting in this style.css or hello.css, whatever you've called it, that ends in CSS document. And all of that stuff we can just leave it in our HTML in this style element. The way we will be doing it for today, and the way that you might see it maybe in smaller websites, is using the style setting over here. If we just mark this style, then you can see that you can just put anything that you want really to just change, let's say the color of this hello world or something like that inside there. But today, actually we're going to be using the CSS, because why not? You're probably not going to be using this style for very long at all. It's basically the very, very basic way to do it. So if we just go into CSS and just do some simple CSS. So if we look at what we've called this element, we've called it P, and that's one of the inbuilt ones. You can have an element called whatever you want, but there are some inbuilt ones which you'll probably be using more often than your personalized ones or whatever. So if we just write P, then you can see that it comes up. And then if we write a curly bracket, then what we can have all through this area is just whatever we want, basically. All of the color code that we want. So we can set the color to maybe, we just set the color, nope, not columns, color to, we can set it to red. Then if we just do that, then you can see that all of our paragraphs, not only this one, but all of them, so this one, this one, this one, this one, are all now red. And if you wanted to, let's say, set the background, then we can set the body, because all of these are in the body element, remember. The body is basically our entire HTML. Then you can go to background color. You can set it to maybe blue, or not black, because you have some black writing, blue. Just set that to that. Then you can see you've got a black background with some quite hard to read red fonts. Now if you wanted to make that a little bit bigger, because that is quite small, all of our things, so what we can do is set this to maybe 100 pixels. Now it's probably going to go absolutely horrible. Oh no, it hasn't. Okay, that's good. So you need to put font size actually. There we go, font size. There we go. Now it's gone absolutely horrible. You can see it's absolutely massive. So if we just scale this down a little bit to maybe 50 pixels, Then you can see it's a little bit more easy to read. If you just reload this one, then it will be, yeah. Here it is a lot easy. So then we can also set maybe, so all of these things, so you're probably going to want to use the background color to make your HTML have a background instead of just having a plain white. You might want to set the color, as you can see, if you hover over this, it says color of an element's text. So that's exactly what that does. Then we have this font size. What it does is it changes the size of the font or the text. Then we can also write font family. Now what this does is it will set the font size we want to be using. If you look, then we have a lot of fonts already there, so we could set it to cursive maybe. You can see we're putting these semicolons after all of them. If you don't put that, then it will not work. So remember, every single one of these, you need to have a semicolon. Here also, no, not here, yeah. Most areas in CSS and most areas in JavaScript, you need to be having this semicolon. Now you can do that.